All right, so get this. We're diving into snakebite treatment.
Ooh, interesting.
And guess what plays a starring role?
Let me guess.
Horses.
Horses? Really? I never would have thought.
I know, right? It sounds kind of strange.
Yeah.
But trust me, it's a connection you'll want to hear about.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Imagine dropping this knowledge bomb in your next meeting
Yeah.
on, like, global health initiatives or something.
Yeah.
You'd be the most interesting person in the room.
I can see that.
But speaking of impact, did you know up to 5.4 million people
Wow.
are bitten by snakes every year?
That's a lot.
That's like almost twice the entire population of Chicago.
Jeez.
And of those bites, almost 2 million result in serious poisoning.
Wow.
Sadly, leading to between 81,000 and 138,000 deaths annually.
So many.
To put that in perspective, that's like a city the size of Cambridge, England, disappearing every year.
That's wild.
It is.
So yeah, the numbers are, they highlight how critical effective treatment is.
Yeah.
And when it comes to snake bites, antivenom is the only proven solution.
Absolutely. So back to the horses.
Okay.
What makes them so special when it comes to making this life-saving antivenom?
Well, they have this incredible immune system.
Okay.
Way more robust than ours. They can produce a massive amount of antibodies.
And those are
those little proteins that target and neutralize the venom's toxins.
So they're like little antibody factories?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And their size is a huge advantage, too.
Oh, how so?
They can handle those small, controlled doses of venom needed to trigger that immune response without any adverse effects.
That makes sense. Now, I'm sure some folks listening are probably thinking, wait, are we injecting horses with venom? Is that ethical?
That's a really valid question.
Yeah.
And the answer is yes.
Okay.
But some important caveats.
I see.
Ethical antivenom production follows very strict welfare guidelines.
Okay.
Think balanced diets, regular vet checkups, and carefully limited blood extraction.
Gotcha.
They're basically living the good life.
Okay, so it's all about ensuring the horses are well cared for.
Absolutely.
That makes sense. Now I'm picturing a scientist in a lab coat holding a tiny syringe and a very unhappy snake.
Right.
What does the venom extraction process actually look like?
So it's not quite like that. It's actually called milking the snakes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it involves carefully stimulating the venom glands.
Interesting.
To release the venom into a collection container.
Milking snakes, huh?
Yeah.
That's a job I'm glad someone else has.
Yeah, it's definitely not for everyone.
But once that venom is extracted, it's diluted and then injected into the horse over a period of time. This repeated exposure is what kickstarts their immune system to start producing those venom-fighting antibodies.
Exactly. It's like boot camp for their immune cells.
Nice.
After a few weeks of this training, a small amount of blood is drawn from the horse.
Okay.
It's the plasma, the liquid part of the blood, that contains the precious antibodies.
So that's where the magic ingredient is.
You got it.
Where does the plasma go from there?
It goes on quite a journey.
Okay, tell me more.
First, it's separated from the blood cells.
Okay.
Then the antibodies are carefully purified and concentrated. Finally, they're formulated into the antivenom that will eventually be used to treat snake bites.
Wow.
Of course, rigorous testing happens every step of the way.
I'm sure.
To ensure it's both safe and effective.
That makes sense. So we have these amazing horses producing antibodies, and we've seen how those antibodies are extracted and turned into antivenom. But just how effective is this treatment in real-world situations? I mean, does it actually save lives?
That's where it gets truly remarkable.
Okay.
Studies have shown that horse-derived antivenom can be incredibly effective. It can neutralize a wide range of venom toxins, and in some cases, it's been shown to reduce the risk of death from a snake bite by a whopping 80–90%.
Wow, that's incredible. So this is literally a lifesaver.
It is.
Are there any alternatives to using horses for this process?
Yeah.
Like, could we just whip up some antivenom in a lab?
There are definitely scientists hard at work exploring those possibilities.
Okay.
They're looking into synthetic and recombinant antivenom, which would be produced in a lab setting.
Okay.
However, These methods are still in the early stages of development.
I see.
And aren't as cost-effective or readily adaptable.
Yeah.
For the huge variety of snake venoms out there.
Okay, so horses are still the MVPs for now.
For now.
I know research never stops.
It doesn't.
What are some of the new developments that could make this process even more effective? Or maybe even eliminate the need to use horses altogether?
One of the most exciting areas of research focuses on reducing the amount of venom needed to get the horse's immune systems going. Scientists are constantly working on refining those purification techniques to maximize the amount of antibody we can get from a single sample.
So it's about making the process as efficient as possible, both for the sake of the horses and for maximizing those precious resources.
Exactly. And there's a lot of buzz around biotechnology. Specifically, recombinant DNA technology could potentially allow us to produce antivenom proteins in a lab.
Interesting.
Without needing the horses at all.
That sounds like it could be a game changer.
It definitely has the potential. Another promising avenue is monoclonal antibody technology. Imagine being able to create highly specific antivenoms. Tailored to the exact toxins in a particular snake's venom. That would be a huge leap forward in treatment precision.
That's amazing. So while horses are still playing a vital role, the future of antivenom production seems pretty bright with all this innovation happening. But let's be real. There must be some significant challenges in producing and distributing this life-saving treatment, right?
Oh, absolutely. One of the biggest hurdles is the cost. Producing antivenom is complex and expensive. And unfortunately, many regions with the highest rates of snake bites are also those with limited resources.
So it's a double whammy.
It is.
The people who need it most often have the least access to it.
Sadly, that's the case. And then there's the issue of cold storage.
Oh, right.
Antivenom needs to be kept refrigerated, which can be incredibly difficult.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
In remote areas or places with unreliable electricity.
That's a logistical nightmare. It seems like there are some pretty major logistical and ethical considerations as well.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, transporting and storing antivenom, especially in challenging environments, requires careful planning and infrastructure.
It does.
So it's not just about making the antivenom. It's about getting it to the people who need it most.
Exactly.
And that's a whole other set of challenges. Do we have any idea?
It's hard to say.
How many horses are involved in antivenom production around the world?
It's difficult to get exact figures, but estimates suggest thousands of horses are dedicated to this important work.
Wow.
They're usually housed and cared for by pharmaceutical companies or research institutions that specialize in antivenom, all operating under strict guidelines.
Okay, so this is a large-scale operation.
It is.
But as we've discussed, there are limitations and challenges.
There are.
Now, I'd love to hear more about the global perspective. Which regions are hit hardest by snakebite envenomation and lack of access to antivenom?
Unfortunately, it's often the regions with the least resources that bear the brunt of this crisis. Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia in particular have alarmingly high rates of snake bites and tragically low access to treatment.
That's heartbreaking to think about.
It is.
The impact on those communities. Can you paint a picture
for
our listener of what this cost and infrastructure barrier translates to in real life for snakebite victims?
Imagine a farmer in rural India bitten by a cobra.
Oh, wow.
The antivenom that could save him costs more than he earns in a year.
Oh, my gosh.
This is the tragic reality for millions.
Wow.
And even if they could afford it.
Right.
Poor healthcare infrastructure often means that reaching a facility in time is virtually impossible.
It's a vicious cycle. So what can be done to address these challenges and ensure that everyone has a chance to survive a snakebite?
Right.
I'm sure our listener is eager to hear about some potential solutions.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
On a global scale, international collaborations are key.
Okay.
We need more funding for antivenom research and production, especially in those hard-hit regions.
Right.
Subsidizing the cost of antivenom in low-income countries would be a major step in the right direction.
So we're talking about a multi-pronged approach.
We are.
Research funding.
Yes.
And making sure the antivenom actually reaches the people who need it most.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are there any other promising avenues?
Yeah. Are there other animals besides horses that could play a role?
Researchers are definitely exploring alternative animal models,
Okay.
like sheep or rabbits,
Interesting.
which could offer advantages in terms of cost or antibody production.
Okay.
And remember that phage display technology we touched on earlier,
Yeah.
that's a completely lab-based approach.
Right.
That could be revolutionary if it proves successful.
So there's a lot of potential on the horizon.
There is.
But what about ensuring the sustainability of antivenom production in the long term?
Right.
What needs to happen to make sure we can continue to meet the demand for this life-saving treatment?
Well, continued investment in research is crucial.
Okay.
Both in terms of improving existing methods and exploring those innovative approaches we've discussed.
Right.
But it's not just about the science.
What else?
We need policies that promote ethical practices.
Yeah.
And support local production facilities.
Okay.
Especially in regions with high snakebite incidents.
So it's about building a system that is ethical, sustainable.
Yes.
And truly responsive to the needs of the communities most affected.
Absolutely. And of course, none of this can happen without raising awareness.
Right.
About the snakebite crisis itself.
Yeah.
People need to understand the magnitude of this problem.
I agree.
Before they can be motivated to act.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Going from horses and snake venom to global health challenges.
Right.
And cutting-edge biotechnology.
A lot to think about.
Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to turn things over to you, the listener.
Okay.
What stands out to you so far? What questions are swirling around in your mind?
Good questions.
Hold on to those thoughts because we'll be diving even deeper.
We will.
Into the global implications of this issue in part 2 of our deep dive.
We'll explore the specific challenges.
Yeah.
Faced by regions with limited resources, the economic burden of snake bites, and the incredible work being done by organizations dedicated to making antivenom accessible to everyone.
That's great.
Stay tuned.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of antivenom. Last time we uncovered that surprising connection between horses and this life-saving treatment.
Yeah, we also talked about those challenges of getting antivenom to those who need it most.
Exactly. We talked about cost being a huge barrier. I'd love to dig into that a bit more. Just how expensive are we talking, and what are those factors driving up the price?
Well, think about it. We've got the venom extraction, then caring to the horses, the repeated immunizations, all those high-tech lab procedures to separate and purify the antibodies, not to mention all the testing and quality control.
It sounds like each step in this complex production line really adds to that final cost.
It does. And then you factor in transportation, storage, and distribution, especially in those remote or resource-limited areas where snake bites are most common.
Right.
It all adds up, and unfortunately, that final price tag can be truly eye-watering.
So for people in these regions, it's more than just affording the antivenom itself. It's also about navigating a healthcare system that might not be equipped to handle those snake bite emergencies.
Absolutely. Imagine being bitten by a venomous snake, knowing there's a treatment that could save your life, but then realizing getting to a medical facility in time, or even just being able to afford the treatment, is simply impossible. It's a harsh reality for far too many.
Yeah, it really highlights those global health inequities at play. So what can be done to tackle this cost barrier? How can we make antivenom more affordable and accessible?
One idea that's often discussed is subsidizing the cost of antivenom in those low-income countries. Governments and international organizations could work together to create those funding mechanisms, making the treatment more affordable for those most in need.
So it's about sharing that financial responsibility on a global scale, acknowledging that this is a problem that impacts us all, even indirectly.
Exactly. Another strategy could involve investing in local production facilities in those regions with a high number of snake bites. This would not only create jobs and stimulate local economies, but it would also reduce that reliance on expensive imports, potentially making that antivenom more readily available.
It sounds like empowering those communities to be a part of the solution could have a huge impact. We also talked earlier about the challenges of distributing antivenom, particularly that need for cold storage. Are there any new approaches being developed to overcome those hurdles?
There is some promising research in that area. Scientists are working on those heat-stable antivenom formulations that wouldn't require refrigeration.
That would be a game changer, especially in those places where reliable electricity is a luxury.
I would think about being able to transport and store antivenom at room temperature. That would really revolutionize how we reach those remote communities.
Beyond those immediate costs and logistical barriers, there's that broader economic impact of snake bites. It's not just the cost of treatment, it's the ripple effects these incidents have on individuals, families, and whole communities.
You've hit the nail on the head. A snake bite can often force people to miss work, leading to lost income and pushing families further into poverty. And in some cases, those long-term disabilities resulting from the snake bites can create a lifelong dependence on caregivers. And that puts a tremendous strain on both the families and healthcare systems.
It's a stark reminder that snake bites are not just a health issue, but a socioeconomic one as well.
Absolutely. The burden falls disproportionately on those already struggling. But amid all these challenges, there's also hope. There are many incredible organizations around the world dedicated to tackling this snakebite crisis.
I'm curious to learn more about these organizations. What kind of work are they doing, and how are they making a difference?
Well, some focus on increasing that supply and affordability of antivenom. They'll work with manufacturers to negotiate lower prices or even set up their own production facilities.
So they're kind of acting like advocates and facilitators, trying to bridge the gap between those who make the antivenom and those who desperately need it.
Exactly. Others focus on community education and training, teaching people how to prevent snake bites in the first place and what to do if someone is bitten. They might even train local healthcare workers on how to administer antivenom safely and effectively.
So it's about empowering people with that knowledge and skills, giving them the tools to protect themselves and their communities.
Precisely. And some are doing groundbreaking research, not just on improving antivenom production, but also on developing those new treatments and diagnostic tools. They're exploring things like venom-specific antibodies, which could be even more targeted and effective than traditional antivenom.
It sounds like a multifaceted approach, addressing that immediate need for treatment access while also pushing those boundaries of scientific innovation.
That's right. The dedication of these organizations and the individuals working tirelessly to make a difference is truly inspiring.
What are some of the biggest challenges these organizations face in their fight against this snakebite crisis?
Funding is a major one. Many of these organizations rely heavily on donations and grants, which can be unpredictable and often insufficient to meet the enormous need.
So it's a constant battle to secure those resources they need to carry out their mission.
It is. And then there are those logistical challenges of working in remote or politically unstable regions, navigating complex regulatory landscapes, and building trust with local communities.
It's not just about the science. It's about understanding those cultural nuances, the political dynamics, and the very real dangers that can exist in these areas.
You're right. It takes a special kind of commitment and resilience to work in this field.
We've talked a lot about those challenges, but I'd love to hear about some success stories. What are some examples of how these organizations are making a tangible impact on the lives of people affected by snake bites?
There are countless stories of lives saved, thanks to their efforts. Sometimes it's about getting antivenom to remote villages that previously had no access to treatment. Other times, it's about training healthcare workers to recognize those symptoms of snakebite envenomation and administer that antivenom quickly and effectively.
So it's about turning those heartbreaking near misses into tales of survival and recovery.
Exactly. And it's about giving people hope where there was once only fear and despair.
It's clear these organizations play a vital role in filling those gaps where healthcare systems fall short. But what about the bigger picture? What needs to happen on a global scale to turn the tide against this snakebite crisis?
For starters, we need to raise awareness. Snakebite envenomation is often called a neglected tropical disease, and it doesn't get the attention or funding it deserves.
So it's about shining a light on this hidden epidemic and ensuring it's no longer ignored or brushed aside.
Exactly. We also need stronger political will and commitment from governments around the world. This includes investing in research and development, implementing public health campaigns, and strengthening that healthcare infrastructure in those affected regions.
So it's about moving beyond words and taking concrete action. And what about the role of individuals? What can everyday people do to support this fight against snake bites?
There's a lot individuals can do. Supporting those organizations working on the front lines is crucial. Donating to reputable charities, spreading awareness on social media, and even volunteering time or skills can make a real difference.
So it's about using our voices, our resources, and our platforms to amplify the message and support the cause. It's about recognizing that even small actions, when multiplied across a large number of people, can have a significant impact.
We've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive, exploring those economic and social impacts of snake bites, the challenges and triumphs of those working to make antivenom more accessible, and the collective responsibility we all share in addressing this global health crisis.
In the final part of our deep dive, we'll shift our focus to the future. We'll look at those exciting advancements in antivenom technology and the ethical considerations surrounding animal use in its production. What can our listener look forward to in this final part?
Welcome back to our deep dive into antivenom. It's been quite a journey so far.
It really has. From those hardworking horses to the global challenges of access and affordability, we've covered a lot.
Yeah, and in this final part, we're going to step into the future of antivenom. We'll be exploring those cutting-edge technologies that could revolutionize treatment and maybe even change the way we think about the role of animals in this whole process.
It's exciting to think we might be on the verge of a new era in snakebite treatment, one that's even more effective and perhaps less reliant on our equine friends. So what are some of the most promising areas of research in this field? What's got scientists really buzzing?
Well, one area that's generating a lot of excitement is the development of synthetic antivenom. Imagine creating a treatment that doesn't rely on animal antibodies at all, but instead uses lab-engineered molecules to neutralize those venom toxins.
That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. How close are we to actually seeing synthetic antivenom being used to treat real snake bites?
It's still early days, but the progress is really remarkable. Researchers are identifying those specific venom components that cause the most damage and then designing molecules that can bind to and neutralize those toxins with incredible precision.
So it's about taking a targeted approach, almost like creating a custom-designed antidote for each type of venom.
That level of precision is incredibly exciting because it could potentially lead to antivenoms that are not only more effective, but also have fewer side effects.
That would be a huge win for patients. Are there any other technological advancements on the horizon that could shake things up in the world of antivenom? What else are those brilliant minds working on?
Absolutely. Another fascinating area of research is recombinant antivenom. This one involves using genetic engineering techniques to produce those venom-fighting antibodies in a lab setting without needing horses or other animals.
So it's like taking the best of both worlds, harnessing that power of antibodies, while potentially avoiding some of those ethical considerations that come with using animals.
Precisely. And the beauty of recombinant technology is that it's incredibly versatile. Once you've identified those genes responsible for producing those potent antibodies, you can insert them into other organisms like bacteria or yeast and use them as tiny antibody factories.
Now that's what I call innovation. Tiny organisms churning out life-saving antidotes. Speaking of innovation, I read somewhere that scientists are even exploring the use of nanotechnology in antivenom development. Is there any truth to that? What could that look like?
You're right on the money. Researchers are looking into using nanoparticles to deliver that antivenom directly to the site of a snake bite. Imagine tiny particles that could neutralize that venom before it even has a chance to spread throughout the body.
That's incredible. It seems like the possibilities are endless when it comes to the future of antivenom. But with all this talk of cutting-edge technology, I can't help but wonder about the ethical implications we've talked about. The concerns surrounding animal use in antivenom production. Do these new technologies raise any ethical questions?
That's a great point. Even though these technologies might reduce or eliminate the need for animals, there are still ethical considerations to think about. For example, if we're talking about genetically modifying organisms to produce antivenom, we need to be mindful of those potential environmental impacts. We need to make sure those organisms are used responsibly.
So it's about ensuring that we're not solving one problem only to create another one down the line.
Exactly. And then there's the issue of access and affordability. These new technologies will likely be expensive at first, so we need to be very careful that they don't worsen those existing inequities in access to treatment.
It would be tragic if these amazing advancements only benefited those who could afford them while leaving those most at risk still struggling to access life-saving treatment.
I couldn't agree more. Ethical innovation means ensuring that these technologies are developed and distributed in a way that benefits everyone, regardless of their socioeconomic status or geographic location.
So it's about ensuring that progress doesn't come at the expense of equity. I know you're all about critical thinking. What are some of the questions or concerns you think we should be asking ourselves as these new technologies emerge? What should we be thinking about as a society?
I think it's important to be cautious about overhyping these technologies. Potential research takes time, and even the most promising discoveries don't always turn into readily available treatments.
So we need to balance our excitement with a healthy dose of reality.
Exactly, and we need to be mindful of those unintended consequences. For example, if synthetic antivenom becomes widely available, will that lead to a decrease in investment in traditional methods, potentially leaving some regions without access to any treatment at all?
That's a great point. It's about considering those ripple effects, both the positive and the potentially negative. So much to think about.
There really is. We need open and honest conversations about those ethical implications of these technologies, involving not just scientists and policymakers, but also those communities that will be most affected by them. It's about having a dialogue that includes diverse perspectives and ensures that these technologies are developed and deployed in a way that's both responsible and equitable.
Well said. As we wrap up this deep dive into the world of antivenom, I want to leave you, the listener, with a challenge. What role can you play in shaping the future of snakebite treatment?
Perhaps you'll be inspired to support one of those incredible organizations working tirelessly on the front lines of this crisis. Maybe you'll share what you've learned with others, raising awareness about this often neglected issue. Or maybe you'll even be inspired to pursue a career in science or medicine, dedicating your talents to developing new and innovative treatments.
Whatever path you choose, remember this. The fight against snake bites is a fight for global health equity. Every voice, every action, every contribution, no matter how small, can make a difference. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and stay informed.